Okay, if we ready, I'll call this 10th regular school board meeting to order. If we could stand and do the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And just to review our mission is to prepare and support all students within a culture of excellence, to do their best and to be their best so that each can be a successful contributing citizen, able to adapt to change and to successfully respond to the future. And we are going to start tonight with recognitions, and we have lots of them, which is always good news. First, congratulations to the Tri-Town Optimist Club Oratorical Contest winners. Hannah McCool, who spoke about her passion for education, and Maddie Tyner, who is here tonight, who spoke about her passion about bullying prevention. Also, we want to recognize Carrie Med, as she was recognized by the members of the state and House representatives. Shivden?
Sure. Carrie out here somewhere? She's hiding.
I see her back there.
She's got her mouth full. So while Carrie is working her way up here, at the state House and Senate, they have an award for Carrie Med in recognition of her Principal of the Year. And you can see she's got a nice foundation for her office. And Mike McClellan was going to be here to present it, but it was on the list of the day that he could not be here, so I told him I would do that on behalf of him. So, congratulations. This is a recognition for the boys' basketball team.
Oh, awesome! Yeah,
there.
They went up there. They did go up there. So
they have said the same thing for recognition of the boys' basketball team for their.
That's great.
Also a copy for the boys' team.
For each kid.
Yes.
Oh, no, very nice. And I'm also going to pass around a newsletter from the Maine Principals Association that recognized Carrie in their newsletter, so that you can read that. And the end of that said, it was with pride we salute Carrie Med, Maine's High School Principal of the Year, who leads her school with grace, humanity, intellect, insight, and devotion. Thank you, Carrie. And also, we want to recognize the Maine National History Day winners, and many of us as school board members had the opportunity to appreciate their work on a first-hand basis, and that many of us were judges at the one that was held here. So we want to congratulate them, and that is Caitlin Dufour, Caitlin Green, Maddie Tyner, Morgan Barassa, Natalie Terrio, Sydney Goslin. So, congratulations. And I know I can say from my experience judging here that the quality of the ones that I judged was very high. And I'm not surprised that we have as many winners as we do. I don't know if there are any other people that judge that would like to say a little bit about their experience that day. Joe, you want to say something?
I would love to say something, but I wasn't there.
Jen?
It was awesome. The kids, the work that they did, it was great to see, and all the different types of projects that they did. I got to read some really great papers, and the kids did put a lot of work into it, and the teachers did as well, and it showed.
Thank you.
I was there as well, and I just want to congratulate the administration of Whittier Middle School for utilizing the gym. It made the whole experience much more pleasing. So, thank you.
So we're going to go on now to our public participation portion of our agenda. And just to remind people that are here for public participation, that this is the portion of our agenda that provides the opportunity for citizens to express their opinions and concerns related to matters under consideration by the board. So in order to make effective use of our meeting time, make sure that every one of you gets an opportunity to share your concerns, we would ask you to, when you are recognized, to state your name so that we have it for the minutes. We would ask you to move to the mic so the people at home could also hear what you have to say. We'd ask you to address any questions you have to me, to the chair, and during that discussion, board members might ask questions, but they'll ask them through the chair. And we also want to have everyone that have an opportunity to speak that would like to, so we'd ask that you minimize any repetition of comments. So, for public participation, I know we have some guests over here. If you'd like to speak to us, there's a microphone down by Annette.
It's on, right? Okay, I'll sit down. I'm Hester Gilpatrick. I'm president of the Historical Society in Minot, and I'm secretary of the Grange. Plus, I cook once a week for the church at Court Street Baptist Church. So, last Wednesday we had 94 for supper. So, I don't have much grass growing under my feet. So, I had some questions as far as the use of the school facilities and grounds. The thing that I'm concerned about, our Grange nor our Historical Society have any insurance, liability insurance at all. And we're wondering about the being able to go into the school. My husband, David, you ought to show those, David, has some pictures that he did set up for you to see. We go in, the Grange goes in and does a dictionary project for the third graders every year. We've done it, I think this was the 12th year that David and I have done it. And then each month I go in with the Junior History Club. Donna Berry is the one that does all the work. I just go in there and keep up with the kids and help her. And we're wondering if this means that we're supposed to have insurance in order to go in to do these things that we do at school. And the other thing is, in the written paper that we got, that we saw, we wondered about the use of the word gymnasium, because the Minot Gymnasium, it says in there, no food in the gymnasium. The one in Minot, of course, we have it as a cafeteria, too. And we've done fundraisers there. We just did one for the Labbies. And so we just wonder, it was built as a place for the community to come together because our Granges are not big enough for the community. And so we just wonder about that too also.
And we are looking at that policy tonight, so we really appreciate your feedback. In terms of the food, my understanding from that policy was it was in the auditorium, which is the auditorium.
But it should state it.
We'll look at that. I think it says auditorium.
It says auditorium, and the whole thing is written for the 3 schools. And so consequently, this is why I wondered whether you should state Minot is different.
Okay, we'll take a look at that. And in terms of the liability insurance, that's also part of that policy that we're going to be looking at this evening.
Okay.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have other people that would like to participate under public participation?
Madam Chairman,
Yes?
David Gilpatrick. We just heard from my better half, so I won't have too much to say. Thanks for taking time to look at those. We've been involved with community service at West Minot Grange, and of course, the town of Minot over the years has had many fundraisers for families that have either had a health problem or burned out and that type of thing. And that facility, as far as I know, has been, I have no idea how many times, but the school itself is 60 years old. Not the gymnasium. That's not quite as old, obviously. But it's really, and I'm sure that each community, Mechanic Falls and Poland, these facilities and the one at Elm Street and Mechanic Falls, they're priceless. And I find it difficult to think that we could justify adding additional or having liability insurance and the cost of it for small organizations. So that's really, we've already heard about it, I'm sure, a good many times. But that's my main concern. Thank you for taking time to look at these. I think they're interesting, but of course I'm prejudiced. Thank you.
Thank you. We want to thank you both for coming, and also you're familiar faces to us because you do come to our budget meetings and our strategic plan meetings, and we certainly appreciate that. And the work that you've done with our students in terms of the Minot history thing too. I know we have some other public participation. If you want to come over by the microphone just so people at home could hear you.
Hi, I'm Morgan Brusso, and today we're here to talk to you about National History Day. We all go to Whittier Middle School, and we all participated in Whittier History Day, where we placed in the top 3. And then we got the opportunity to go to the state level in Orono, where we had to place in the top 2. And all of us achieved that. And now we've been given an even bigger opportunity to go to nationals in Washington, D.C., and today we are here to talk to you about that, but first we're going to introduce ourselves. I'm Morgan Brusso. I live in Poland, and I did a project on individual documentary about the Boston Massacre. I placed 3rd here in Whittier History Day, and then I placed 2nd in the state level.
Hi, I'm Sydney Goslin. I'm also from Poland. I worked with Caitlin Green, and we did a group website on Little Rock 9. And we placed 1st in Whittier History Day and 1st in State History Day.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Green. I'm also from Poland, and I worked with Sydney. We did our project on Little Rock 9.
I'm Maddie Tyner. I come from Minot. I did an individual documentary on the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, and in Whittier History Day I placed 2nd, and then in the State History Day I placed 1st.
I'm Caitlin Dufort. I'm from Mechanic Falls. I worked with Natalie Terrio, and we did a project called Slaughter of Their Culture. It was about Indian boarding schools. We placed 1st at Whittier, and we also placed 1st at States. And we have really big hopes of going to nationals because we're really excited for this opportunity.
I'm Natalie Terrio, and Caitlin was my partner. Today we are here to ask of you to donate $1,200 to go towards our traveling expenses to go down to Washington, D.C. This is a great opportunity, and it'd be greatly appreciated if you guys could help make this happen.
If you have any questions, we're here.
How much total do you need? Jack?
When is the national competition?
June 14th through, so it's June 14th to the 18th, or the 19th.
And where is it again?
Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C.
What's the total number you need?
Well, this is just for our travel expenses, but we need about 6,000.
Can you girls tell us what kind of fundraising you're planning on doing? In what ways we might be able to support you through your fundraising also?
We all are going to separate companies and separate people who own companies, stuff like that. And we are asking for them to donate money. And we also have a thing where if you donate more than a certain amount of money, you get sponsored on the back of T-shirts and stuff and cool stuff like that. So we do that stuff, and I know we have a bunch of more things planned. Ball drives.
Spaghetti dinner, yeah.
I might remember, although I may be wrong, that we did something last year. So I'm
Tina, you
curious.
wanna Tell us what we did last year.
So last year, Mike proposed donating $500 towards the trip for the students who made it to nationals, and that was approved by the board.
Yeah.
How many people went last year?
I don't recall. I
It was
know Sean
less.
5, so 6 this year and 5 last year.
In terms of our board policy, in terms of making, taking action, it really should be on as an agenda item, which we can do that, put it on for our May meeting, which would still be in time for their competition. So we can do that. If that's what the board would like, we can put it on as an agenda item for our next meeting and have some discussion about it then.
Yeah.
So our next meeting is the 19th of May? It's May 19th, so that would still be before your competition, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming,
Congratulations.
girls, and congratulations again. Do we have anybody else that would like to comment during our public participation? Okay, move on with our agenda. We do have some agenda adjustments, and Lauren has given us updated agenda, so you will notice under new business there are some resignations that we will deal with under new business. So that's an agenda adjustment. Presentation. If you remember last month, Tina shared with us some of the district scores for NECAP, and this evening we're going to look a little bit more at the school, individual school scores.
So Arthur Reed, are you ready to present? NECAP? Sure. You can see he was...
He's already on 9.0.
I know, really.
I'm wondering what's going on.
Thank you, sir.
That's okay. Thank you.
And Rick had a prior engagement, but he's going to be here. He's hoping he'll get here in time to do this before we move on. So the others will go first, and then we will, if Rick makes it in time, and if not,
I guess I'll wait till they all get out.
Oh, thanks. Feels good.
one is for Minot and one is for...
Yeah, it should say up top too. ESS. I see mine. It says Minot.
No.
It doesn't. Okay.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, not really.
I wonder why.
Okay, just to start, first of all, let me give you a little bit about the process that I used with the faculty. We took a part of the valuable time that you gave us for in-service on Wednesdays. We looked at the released items for math and for reading, and from that we drew some conclusions. Then I worked with the leadership team to actually then develop it into an action plan. So the whole staff was part of the whole involvement with looking at released items, so on and so forth. And I guess just a couple things that we did make. We made several goals, you'll see, for reading and math. And part of this is going to be a little bit hard to judge for the next couple of years because we are switching testing, obviously, from the kneecap. So, we will use some of the kneecap information, NUIA information, but the kneecaps will be a smarter balance. So I do think that we're going to have to continue to work on those skills, but it's going to be a little, and they will work on those skills, and we tried to develop this plan to address that. First of all, our results over the first 2 years, one thing that really jumped out at us was in math, that since we worked with Bruce Wellman came, and we were lucky to have a team that was invited, and each school had a team that was invited to work with him. We chose a group of 4 of us to work with him on our math because, as you can see, our scores were 63 and 69%. After working with Bruce Wellman, our scores went up tremendously, 79, 78%. And part of that was looking at data to help us inform what we were doing. And I think that a lot of that also was to keep it as awareness right in our minds on what was going on. So some of those results were reflective of that. We seem to be having trouble in math breaking the 80% barrier. Obviously, the goal is for 100%. It's something that you always are striving for, and that's where we're working on. And what we identified in the area of math was to provide students with additional opportunities to explain their mathematical thinking in written form. We noticed that that really was, our kids suffered in that area. Direct instruction and additional practice in solving multi-step problems. They seemed to do very well when it was a one-step problem. Multi-steps were more taxing, and our results went as well. And also, we have started already this year a book study on Common Core standards for mathematical practice. Math has changed a lot in how it's being taught, and we are working on that, not so much the computation, but the concepts, so on and so forth. And this book is really a great jumping off point for us to start to work at that. So, in reading, we have identified 2 areas to work on, which is focused on instruction on how to support student answers with evidence from the text, and provide students with direct instruction and practice on how to answer questions with multiple parts, which was areas that we found our students didn't do quite so well at. On the flip side, you'll also notice that I gave you more or less a recap for this year, how Minot did compared to the state by grade, so on and so forth. I do not have the state average versus our average at this point. I was unable to find it before I took off on my trip. So
it wasn't available at that point.
I wasn't available when it was
to be
released.
fair.
Okay, so that's basically where we are. We have not looked at the writing yet. And one thing I would point out, being a smaller school, we have a real, and I think I pointed this out last year, a small sample size. I really feel strongly that we need to look at the writing over 3, 4, and 5 years when you're working with such a small group of students. We have from anywhere from 24 to 30, or even down to 22 in some years. So it's very hard because it's only given to 5th graders at our school. So to look at that as if it was doing all the students, then I think we would get more information. So that's what we will go back and look at the writing. We have not got there at this point. So, questions?
Who's Bruce Wellman?
He was somebody that came. I'll let Ms. Taylor talk about it.
That's all right. You got to.
Bruce came.
He's a data guy.
And that's what he does. Is he out of Massachusetts?
Actually, Vermont, but they also have a place in Mass. But yeah, so he is really good at working with schools on data-driven dialogue. Sort of an expert. So we are fortunate to have money to bring him in because of our SIP status.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah. And we chose to focus math at our school that we worked on. So, okay.
I have a question, but this probably really pertains more to the kneecaps as a whole, but it just makes it difficult because, as you said, it's only fifth graders that get the exam. So when you look from year to year, and when you look at the writing, for instance, 86% and then down to 36%, it's like, my gosh, what happened? And it's like, it's a different class, it's a different group of students, but is there any way to, I don't know, I'm just throwing this out here, but is there any method to that in the sense of being able to predict, like some of the kids that are coming up to fifth grade, that you know this is going to be?
I think you look at longitudinal studies over time and in certain areas of writing. I just think it's very difficult to do that on a year-to-year basis. So, and we will go back and look at writing over the last 3 or 4 years in areas of strengths and areas of weakness to see if we can find a common area of strength and also a common area of weakness that we need to focus on. But it is difficult on a yearly basis to do that. I mean,
one of the things we've worked as a district this year with writing is on writing workshop, but also on mini lessons for each one of those, and then on common assessments, and then having dialogue with other teachers about what that means. So I think you have a really good point that I think if you can get a profile of that class, right, that doesn't succeed, then you can break some of those mini lessons down to target those students, right? And we're not there yet, but I think we've begun that conversation this year, and I think we hope, right, within a couple of years we will be at that point where we can break it down just like we can with reading. Because I think that's a really good point.
And to also piggyback on our goals in our strategic plan are to be responsive to the data and put staff where we see needs. And if you'll look at this group, I would say Arthur and all of the teachers at Minot knew that this group was struggling previously. And if you'll compare, in reading, if you look at Minot reading, 91% in third grade we're meeting, 90 in fourth grade, 60 in fifth grade, and 84 in sixth grade. So you can see that group struggles in the area of reading and writing. And once we have RTI in place, you would be targeting those students earlier, so you don't just say, oh, this fifth grade group is going to be lower. You try to do something about it before they move up another year. And that is our goal, and that's the work we've started to our strategic plan.
And I would tell you that those scores have moved up if you look at their results from third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade, okay? So they have still improved, and we have been conscious of that. So.
Okay, so I know I have a little different format. I apologize. I've shared a lot of our goals in terms of kneecap because we were a SIP school 3 years ago. We did move off of that status this year, which was awesome. So what I've given you here are 3 different sort of presentations. One is whole school, and it includes everyone. So you can see, from the data that in the past 3 years, we increased in reading and math except for this year. So we went down this year in reading, but we went up in math, which was awesome. Just so you can put your head around what a percent is. So if you have and I know you can do simple math. So 166 students, right? 1% is 1.6 students. So to drop 4%, really it's like 5 or 6 students, right? That actually drop, and that's really important because I think what Arthur is suggesting is huge. If we have a really high performing 7th grade group and they go to 8th grade, right, and we have an underperforming 3rd grade, then that can definitely throw off your percentage. We also took on, which we're psyched about, we are the ELL school this year, which is fantastic. It's both, it benefits us in so many ways because we get to learn about, different languages and cultures and things like that. It does also impact our percentage as a school. So there are factors, I think, that would drop our reading score a little bit. I also presented the subgroups because I think this is one of the conversations that that Holly and I know the other administrators have been having for a while. Because if you will note that as you see the student with disabilities, right? So that's any student with an IEP, right? And this is, I think, sort of what you were talking about in terms of writing, right? So if we can identify the challenge, then perhaps we can get them there. And we're definitely struggling in that area. We took a real hit in reading, if you notice, this year at 28%, which makes me really unhappy, but also makes me think why. Like so why? Who? And was it just a bad day? And so I and our staff have gone through the individual scores, and there are a couple where probably fooling around, not really paying attention, those types, right? And then I think it gets harder every single year. And I think as they get into 5th and 6th grade and 7th grade with that transition, it becomes harder, and I think we have to actually figure out then how to support them. So we've struggled with that. We went inclusive. So in the fall of 2011, we were pull out in it. So we pulled all special identified students out to do math and reading, if that's what their identification was. If there was a behavior, we pulled them out. We pushed them back in 2 years ago. And actually, we didn't see a decrease 2 years ago. So that tells me that's not the problem, right? Actually, that's not the issue. But here's the thing. I think we had a lot of students who were not at grade level that we pushed back in. So we're going to have to give this a few years to get kids back at grade level. So we're going to have to work really hard at that in order to do it. But for me, it's really important that kids are in the least restrictive environment, and currently that's where it is in the mainstream classroom for most cases. You will note the economically disadvantaged, and I'm going to give tons of kudos to our Title I group, because that's who service, I mean, they're not the only ones who service those kiddos, right, because the classroom teachers do, but notice the increase in those numbers over time, which is, you know, we want to be in the 80% too, don't get me wrong. I'd love to be in the 90%, but I think little small steps are like gifts, and also, you know, like a trophy almost. The ELL students, I don't really want to put any information. There's such a small subcategory. It becomes kind of, you know, we just don't want to talk about that as much because you can then they can be identified. I also wanted to show you, because I think this was fascinating. Earlier, and I'm going to be done soon, but earlier this year, I took all the data and I put it on my white dry erase board, because I wanted to see the increase over time to figure out were there transitional moments, like when they went off to 7th grade, right? Or when they came into 3rd grade when they started taking the assessment. Or were there pockets of, you know, I think this also allows us to say, all right, you know, there may be some areas where instruction needs to be improved, right? So if you'll note in the longitudinal data that I gave you, I highlighted so you could see how it goes across. So if you start right, 3rd grade, fall of 2010, they're at 67. They drop in 4th grade to 62. They go up to 80 in 5th grade. Wowzer, Captain Mauser. They go down a little bit, you know, in 6th grade. But overall, if you take that first 67 to 77, that's an increase, right? And you'll note, actually, in most years, there's growth. And that's what we're looking for. So it may not be meeting the, you know, we may not be at 90%, which I'm not sure what the standard is now at the state. I know it was 75 last year, and I don't know the percent. We may not be at that percent, but students are growing, and that's what we're looking for as schools. So I wanted to include that data because I think that's really important. So a few things that we've worked on at Elm Street School, and you've heard some of these already. When I started 3 years ago, one of the conversations we had is that a lot of people were using different literacy assessments, right? And so we were not using the same language, and that was really hard. And I don't think we were really good at targeting exactly what students needed. And so we all, as a district, we adopted Fountas and Pinnell. And then we used the framework Daily 5 in the cafe. And that's been ongoing, so for 2 years that's been in place. This year, because I talked to Mike at the end of last year, I'm like, we had a conversation about how do you transition from reading now to math, right? And so what we wanted to do is talk about how, you know, math is part of literacy. So we actually did math action research at Elm Street, and they focused on constructive response, which actually is a literacy skill, right? And Arthur just mentioned this. You can comprehend something, that doesn't necessarily mean you can get it onto paper. And math even becomes that much harder because there's so many steps to that. And so we really focused on that, and several teams adopted CUBES method, which is a really awesome way to use a visual to put things in different blocks and then come up with an answer. We've also continued to work on our co-teaching model, which means lots of conversation and dialogue. And that's hard because there's not a lot of time at the elementary level. You know, that's done during special times, which is about 40 minutes. So we've really worked on using our Wednesdays for that also. And then this has nothing to do with this, but this year we're really focusing on behavior, but as we know, behavior affects academics. So what we're hoping is some of the behavior work that we're doing this year is actually we're going to see results in our achievement. So that's my presentation, if you have any questions. All right.
And for those of you who are trying to remember what the state averages are, the 69% is the state average for reading, 62% in math, and 49% in writing. And I think we have Rick next.
Welcome. Just in time. All right. So I guess if we start on the back, I guess with the data, probably first. Just generalizing in that, you can see that in this fall in 13, we did have a little bit of a drop in really all three areas. I think it's important to remember when we're looking at, you know, the number of students that we have and, you know, across the board, we're talking about around 15 students different, going from making a standard to dropping is what we're looking at, in that 6 to 7% drop. So it's not as bad as it feels, and it does feel kind of bad. You know, whenever you drop, you're going the wrong direction, so you don't like to see that. But so again, looking at where we are overall, you know, I kind of summarized that on the front. You know, honestly, the reading and writing for PCS for the past 4 years are pretty flat. Math, we've seen some improvement on. What we've done, what we already have in place this year, we have 1.5 ed tech interventionists who are working with students in literacy and in math. And then the other piece is looking ahead towards next year, or actually starting this year and moving ahead into next year. We're doing NWEA testing with all of our students in grades 2 through 6. And what we're focusing on is a growth model for our teachers. We're taking that NWEA data, and it provides us with a projected growth for each student. And so really what we're trying to look at is every one of our students making a year's worth of growth in a year. If you start out and a student's 2 years behind already, it's hard to catch them up those 2 years. But if we can make at least a year's growth and a year and a little bit more, you know, a year and a tenth, those third graders are caught up, you know, a grade level by the time they graduate. So, you know, we make that progress, and that's part of what we've looked at with that. Also next year, we're implementing what we're calling win time. What I need, it's 30 minutes 4 times a week. We're really going to target skills and all students and all skill areas. We're not only doing this as an intervention and remediation, but also as extension opportunities for those, you know, students who are already above the standard. We added for next year, or you added so far, a 4th grade teacher. If you look at, again, the data table, our reading for our 3rd grade is hurting. And that's the largest group we have at PCS, 24 or 25 to a classroom. You know, and that, again, that we lost a class. The 7th grade was 71% met standards on reading last year as 6th graders. And now we bring in a 2nd grade to 3rd grade, which is larger and a little bit lower. It very quickly dragged those scores down on us. You know, working on that, we've added that piece. And then our professional development book studies around writing and math instruction. You know, one of the quickest ways to help raise your scores is to improve a student's writing. That's where a lot of points get lost in these assessments, is around the student's ability to construct a complete answer, particularly, you know, a longer written answer. And actually looking at the Smarter Balance testing, one of the things that we've seen next year's assessments is that if they're given a multi-step question, that it will allow them to answer one step but not the other ones. So if they can't pick apart those questions and they can't construct answers to answer all the pieces of that problem, then that's going to be, you know, points left on the table that the students won't see. So You know, and I think as Arthur had said earlier, even though I wasn't here for his, we talked about the presentation. You know, with that change to the smarter balanced testing, it's going to be a challenge. You know, there's really 3 prongs of that test that we need to think about. You know, the students' ability to answer those questions, the technological skills that they need to answer them. Obviously, the content, and then also the ability of, I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Yeah. So, anyway, so it is, you know, it is challenging, and we do need to look at, you know, how we can help our students be successful on those next year, too.
So can I ask a question of all 3? Just that anyone, it can be a jump ball.
can.
So if the 3 of you had a magic wand that you could wave, what would be that thing that you would hope would be sitting in the middle of your desk that would have you, and I don't even know what I'm asking for.
You want to be careful.
Yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't answer this, Mr. 9.0. Yeah, I guess it's the because you talked about wanting to see some improvement every year, and I know there's all kinds of factors that go into that. So strip that away, and if you could just say, boy, these scores continue to increase, and I'm thrilled to tell you this. I'm thrilled to report it. What would be? Is there anything that you could wish for that would get you there?
I would really wish for the resources at younger ages to really get to the students that I think sometimes we don't get to them. And the quicker you get to them, the quicker you solve the issue, to be honest with you, Joe. And I just think sometimes it's a while before they get picked up because of lack of resources or because we don't pick up on it, to be completely honest with you. So the quicker we can, the better we can get at picking up areas of weakness and strength, okay, and then focusing on those with our resources. That's where, for me, that's where it is.
So is that smaller class sizes? Do you mean that? Or how would you name resources?
Well, even resources for people who are specialists, such as in literacy, to work with students in small group instruction. More flexibility in the day that we need to look at on how to make those opportunities available for students. But in some cases, we don't really have some of the resources to do that at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. The younger the intervention takes place, the better off we are. We were at the MPA conference a few weeks ago. Mike Mattos was talking, and he's a big guru around, you know, PLCs and RTI, into student interventions, and said that one of the key indicators that states use to determine how many people will be incarcerated is if they are more than a year below reading level in 3rd grade. And that's that's how they project out how many people will.
Sobering.
So, yeah, so, I mean, obviously, the intervention at those early ages, those are, you know, that's where you got to get them. You know, and then, plus, you know, there's that feeling of discouragement for kids. When they get to a point where, you know, they've seen failure for 2 or 3 years, it starts to get discouraging for them. So finding that success earlier, the more, you know, more people to work with those kids.
Can I just add just one more thing, and that is, and you guys have done a really good job, and I think, in funding professional development. I think part of it, too, is providing professional development on how to instruct some of this, right? So math, I mean, we talk about the elementary level, you don't have experts in math, right? And so what we've been able to do is do a lot of work around that this year, and that's been helpful. So having that time and having the resources. Also, you know, differentiation. It's a lot harder than it sounds. right? You've got 20 kids in your classroom, you've got high, middle, and low. How do you do it? And I think, our teachers, I struggled with that as a teacher, I can just say that. And I think the more professional development we can have in that area, I think is going to support, even when they're young. It doesn't matter what age, because that crosses grade levels. So professional development, if I could have just a tub of money for it, if I walked into my office, that's what I would vote for.
Thanks.
And Joe, one of the things that goes back to our goals around RTI is that every child who's below standards in reading, writing, and math, we'd like to be reading, math, and behavior, we'd like to provide support for. That's what the law says. So if you think of 75% of our kids are meeting standards, that still means 25% are not. In a school the size of Rick's, that's 500 kids, that would be 100 students who need some sort of intervention. And some of them, it might only be 6 months of intervention, but some of them may need intervention for 3 or 4 years. And the information out there is that you can't do it just by pulling them out of reading and giving them a smaller group. It's got to be additional time. So being able to give students that are struggling in reading and math 2 reading periods in a day and 2 math periods or 2 math periods in a day is key to that. But if you only have the classroom teacher, you don't have the resources to do that. And so that's where our request for additional staffing or support for RTI comes in, and the goals and the strategic plan to make sure that's fully funded in the next 5 years. We've started that process, but that's pretty overwhelming when you think about how many kids 25% actually is, and actually how many resources. Like, we have 1 teacher and 1 ed tech at Poland Community School to support students not meet standards in math. So to provide double class time for math is difficult, and not really possible to do it at the level that you would to get them to grade level.
Thank you.
So I'm not sure when we started the 4-year-old program in all of the schools, but thinking about this and how that might align, and are we seeing differences with having the 4-year-old program? Is that, as these numbers sort of come in, is that making an impact? Because we're, that's what all the literature says, right? I mean, so that's why we want a 4-year-old program, so we can kind of start early. So it'd be kind of interesting to see if the grades sort of change.
This is the first year we're basically fully supported for at PCS. The other 2 schools have had more coverage for that because they're half the size and they still have the same number of staffing for preschool. But we don't test until 3rd grade.
Right.
So we have not seen, I don't know how long ago it was. Are we 3 years now?
It matters on the school. Okay, at Elm Street, I think it's 5 or 6. PCS started the year after, and we're on this is our 3rd year, so it would be pre-K, K1.
That'd be 5, right, so those.
We still got a couple of years to go before we get.
And it definitely makes a huge difference. So
Right.
not doing the 4-year-old program.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that we have to provide the heaviest interventions.
Right.
Right. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
as you think about that, that's another tool, right?
Right.
By having the 4-year-old program. The other piece, the other thought I have is just being a parent myself is, how do we engage parents to advocate? Like, they know their kids, and I can hear, Angie, what you're describing, because it's hard. If you've got a kid of 20, a class of 22 kids, it's hard to identify the needs of each individual child. I mean, I can just imagine. But as a parent, sort of what your strengths are in your kids and what are the challenges. And I know for me, I've always been a big advocate with my kids, and great relationship with the teachers like he's had, to be able to advocate for what he needs to make sure that he can be successful. So, I don't know how to, maybe just another thought, another resource, but how do we empower parents to be able to have those conversations with teachers and really advocate for their kids to make sure that they are meeting their needs too? To be another resource.
Right.
It's not just the teacher
Yeah.
trying to identify it. It's the parents as well. Anyway.
Okay.
Sean, are you ready to present tonight?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm not going to go through the data in as much detail, but there are a couple of things I want to highlight for people, and I'll just talk about our process at the middle school. It looks a little bit different for us. We only have the students for 2 years, so they come in, and then immediately they're tested, you know, as they come in the door. And so really that reflects their teaching as sixth graders, because they're coming in as the beginning of their 7th grade year. And then we test them again at the start of the 8th grade year. So there's a reflection there of the teaching from the previous year, and then they're gone. So, you know, it's in one door, out the other. And so when you look at like the summaries on the first page, that really reflects one grade level. It reflects our 8th graders and how they're performing. And as you can see, you know, just looking at the mean score, you know, it's staying fairly flat year to year. We did have I would say a struggling group of math students last year, so we bounced back a little bit. But that's, when you look at those summary scores, it's kind of like comparing apples to oranges, because it's just a totally new group of students that's coming in each year. On the next page, I wanted to just give you a comparison of our students to the state level, and you can see it kind of goes through reading, math for 7th grade, and then it goes into 8th grade, reading, math, and writing. And we are right in line with the state, basically, just maybe a hair above the state as far as the mean score. And, you know, we're not satisfied with that. You know, our process is very similar to what Arthur described, where we have the released items, we take that test apart, we take a look at where our students struggled. As a full school, we looked at the reading test. We really feel like that's not English language arts. It's got to be in science. They've got to be working on their reading skills and social studies, and even in math now. It's across the board. So even our specialist teachers are part of that process. For the math, we pulled the math teachers out, and they worked together to take apart that test. And what they found is there are some needs in our curriculum. There are some holes, some pieces that students seem to be struggling with that we need to put more attention into, maybe put some new supplemental parts in. And we're working very hard now, actually, with the high school. We've set up a number of dates in which we're taking a look at the curriculum and seeing how that looks vertically and making sure needs are met. We also have time scheduled with 6th grade teachers coming up in May to continue that practice of working on the vertical alignment of our curriculum, making sure that students are getting what they need to be successful, and not only on this test, but you know to have that information that they need to be math students going forward, and then to be able to apply that in real life too. But the last piece is really where I wanted to highlight. Just give some comparisons between males and females on both the reading and math and writing. The economically disadvantaged at Whittier compared to economically disadvantaged at the state, and then students who are on IEPs as well. Economically disadvantaged is an area where Whittier seems to shine a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't say 59% is shining, but it is above the state level, and we're consistently above the state level in that area. The one thing that jumped out to our staff, and I have to highlight, is the last box on the last page, the writing results. Take a look at the difference between the way our females and our males are performing in writing, and it's a serious deficit, I would say, for our male writers. You know, 28% of them meeting or exceeding the standards on the writing test. It's a huge need. So as a staff, we have been working on that. Writing has been a focus for us at Whittier for the last 2 years. And you know, not just writing to a prompt, but writing across the curriculum. Good writing in science and argumentative writing in history. And you know, I think what we find is we need to provide opportunity for all of the kids to do some choice writing, but also being able to write to a prompt, to do some timed writing. These things are important. They're not just important in school. They're important beyond that as they you know, get into maybe they're writing as part of a job application or something like that. They need this practice. But we really need to turn our attention to our male students, you know, and not turning away from the females, but at the same time what do we need to do differently for those kids to make a difference? So we were doing some reading together. We pulled some articles as staff. There were some recommendations about finding ways to put male models in front of students and let them see some genuine writing from male writers. And so we'll look at that a little bit. But I think we're going to need to do some serious RTI work and doing some small groups and using the staff we have. We talked. You guys were just talking about resources. Our resources are fairly limited, but I think we can get creative. We find ways to do that, and we just need to find a way to meet the kids where they are, and help them grow. But that is an area of that really stood out as we took this test apart.
Move on our agenda, a few minutes, and we had two that were included in our packet and an additional set of minutes that Lauren left for us this evening. So we have 3 sets of minutes from our 9th regular board meeting, and then we have the 4th special board meeting and the 5th special board meeting. So we have those 3 sets.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from those 3 meetings.
Second.
A motion, a second. Is there any discussion?
Make a motion that we amend my motion to to approve the minutes from the March 10, 2014 meeting.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Abstention? And 2 abstentions.
And actually, me too.
Okay, we have.
I wasn't here for that meeting
and
either.
Mariella also.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes from the March 24, 2014 meeting.
I'll second.
Second from Mariella. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention?
Was that opposed?
No. Oh. Do we have any abstentions for that one? All right.
And I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes of our April 14, 2014 meeting.
Second.
Second by Joe. Any discussion?
Yeah, which one did you just say?
That was the last meeting, April 14th.
Okay.
No, it's just for the first one.
The first one was March 10th.
I was there.
So, March 10th, we had all the folks that came. Right. So then the second one is March 24th.
I wasn't here.
And that was
Missy is abstaining on March.
On March 24th, Missy abstained. I think I last forgot.
And on our
Just figure who was here for 2 meetings.
April
It's too late, we moved on.
14th,
March 24th. April 14th.
April 14th, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of April 14th? Anybody opposed? Abstention? Abstention.
Just to
Scott,
be certain, I got it March 24th. It was everybody in favor except Missy who abstained, right?
I should abstain as well. I just forgot I wasn't here for that.
There's too many of them.
Scott
Okay.
Schreiner.
Fast.
Too much in one.
Who's feeling like that?
And that told me I was.
Too much going on.
Okay. Are you all set, Linda? Okay, thank you. Our next is the acceptance of the financial statement. Would you like me to speak? Do we have a motion?
Make a motion? Accept.
Mariella made a motion, we accept. Joe seconded it. Do we have any discussion? Tina, give us an update.
Thank you. So if you look down through your budget, you'll see that we're right on target. We should be have a quarter, 0.25 less of the school year. And if you look at on our revenue page, you'll see we're at 0.25, which is excellent. We have not needed to go into the $230,000 we allocated from fund balance. We don't anticipate needing to use that at all at this point. So that's exciting. For each of our schools, they're all close to that 0.25, and we are feeling, again, good about where we are overall. We will be winding down all spending as we get into the beginning of May, or that goes up, so that your accounts can even out before we do our full budget review at the end of the year. There were Tina had a couple of questions. One of them that I wanted to talk about is utilities. If you'll notice on our utilities, we are in the negative on many of them. We have a pretty serious issue with our electricity provider, that's Glacial Energy. They are, we got a $40,000 bill in February, I believe. We called to find out why there was a mistake to that, because that's not typical, and the electricity costs have shot up. When we looked into that further, they said we were on a standard, I'm trying to remember what the term was, yeah, 5 or 6 years ago, and we, after 2 years of going on that, you had to say you wanted to stay on that. Nobody did, so we went to a variable rate. And with all the storms this winter, those rates shot up. We are paying 0.25 when the standard rate is 0.08. And so we basically said we're going off from Glacial. We went on to CMP standard, and we just got another bill that's astronomical from Glacier, and what they said was that CMP hadn't read the meter, and so we have another bill from them because the change didn't occur when we asked it to occur, which was April 1st. So we are working with Glacial and CMP to try to get that reversed to April 1st. Whether we will be successful, I don't know. Glacial is now filed for Chapter 11.
Shocking.
So we are not looking good. We're actually going to talk to the bank to see if we can not make payment for that last bill. But again, we're all in the works on that right now.
Jeez.
So this is news to us. I had no idea we were on a variable. I don't think anybody else did. And I did ask for a contract to show when it went to variable, and they can't find one. And we have no access. So it just changed, and there's no contract that, I said, I haven't signed anything. And I wanted to know where the last one was, and the last one we have shows that we're on a fixed rate. So it's been 3 or 4 years since we've actually gotten a contract that shows, there's nothing that shows we're on a variable. Except small print 5 years ago that says after 2 years it goes to a variable, unless you ask to stay on a fixed, which I don't know why a school system wouldn't obviously be doing that, but so hasn't been a problem until now, but it is now, and we will definitely be in the negative on that, and hopefully not much more. So that's, you're going to see those lines in the negative, and there's not much we're going to do about before April 1st. I don't know about since April 1st. There are a couple of questions that Tina had was like, why are some of our benefits in the negative, and also some of our salaries? So need to remind people that if staff changes, then there are changes to benefits. But also open enrollment for benefits is in May, which is after budget time. So a staff member, this year we have a few staff members who know they're having babies this summer, so they let us know ahead of time. We actually budgeted for their family plan rather than their, single or 2 adults. But there are many times where you don't know what those costs are until after budget is done. I would say the same has happened with negotiations with administrators happened after the budget. Negotiations with the central office staff happened after the budget. So again, there are some lines that are overspent or will be in a negative because of things that occur after the budget process. And because you have savings in other places, we're not concerned about those. They will balance themselves out. But I did want you to know that if there are some areas that are in the negative, and it has to do with salary or benefits, that's why. And let me see, if there were any other, Tina wanted to know about Bruce Whittier and PRHS's phone lines being in the negative. One of the things that's happened is our phones are at the end of their life and they're dying at rapid speed. So we budgeted to replace them all this summer, our administrative phones. Some of them haven't made it to this summer, and they of course have to be replaced. We need our administrators to have phones. So that has had a little impact on our phone costs. And also one of the phones at the high school, which was for the DPAC program, wasn't budgeted last year. It is for next year, so that's why PRHS phone line is actually.
So these are cell phones? Or
Yes,
landlines?
these are our administrators' cell phones that were in the negative. At least that's what I was assuming they were, because I know.
They just said telephones.
Oh, yes. The cell phones, I know we replaced one for Bruce Whittier that died early, and I know that we had a cell phone not budgeted for at PRHS. There was a question about special ed costs for trip transportation, and this is the first year that special ed has budgeted for trips. It's just been an item that the transportation department ate up in its regular budget. So it was an estimate about how much was needed specifically for special ed. So again, that's in a negative on page 31, if anybody wants to look at that. And then the other question that Tina had was transportation, why is insurance at negative 0.5? Again, remember our liability insurance went up 18%. That's where that comes in. And then a question, I think Scott actually had this at a previous meeting, why our bus loan purchase was below. I don't know if you remember asking me this. I think it was Scott that asked this. It was. I have a great memory, don't I? So you were asking why that was not budgeted accurately, and when I asked about this, we had wanted more buses than we got approved for. So when the actual approval came through for fewer buses, we ordered a bus that was larger than we initially had budgeted for. So it's like a $2,000 or $3,000 increase over what was budgeted for that line. And so yeah, usually you can anticipate the cost of a lease, and you're not off on that, but because of the larger bus that happened for us in that line. I think that's all of the questions that Tina had for me. There's no other big red flags for us in the budget. So if you look at the very last page, you will see we are at 0.25, exactly where we would want to be at this time of year. And many of our expenses are already done. So we bulk order supplies at central office. Those lines might be zero. And that occurs in, like if you're doing bus repairs and maintenance, most of that happens in the summer, except for your ongoing stuff. So again, have 0.25 left. It's leaving us in good shape.
Anybody else have questions for Tina? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed or abstaining? Okay, so we're moving on to new business. And starting out with the discussion and approval of the senior class trip. Carrie, you wanna?
Here, sorry. This is quick because I didn't realize till I talked to Lauren over vacation that we needed to do this. Although we're unclear because he's not out of state, but we figured to be safe. Last year, Mike had me bring it to you. We're going to the same place we went last year. Did Lauren give you the stuff?
Yes.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
perfect. I
Carrot
wasn't
Dunk.
sure. So we're going to Adventure Bound. The kids are staying one night. We go up Sunday, come back Monday. The list of chaperones has been finalized, so we have 8, including myself. I don't have the final list of who's going yet, but that happens in the last couple weeks, so that's pretty much it. It's the same, I mean, it's a great company. We started working with them last year. The accommodations are a little rougher, but the services are better, so less work for the adults. The company pretty much takes care of everything, so it's a good deal.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the senior class trip to Caratunk.
Second.
And the second?
Second.
Second by Joe. Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That was
And
unanimous.
just a reminder, the school doesn't provide any funding for this, right? Just saying that out loud. Okay,
Have fun.
And it is the time of year where we need to appoint teachers that are on second or third year probationary contract, and you have, that list was attached, as part of our packet. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Only that you will see a change. It used to be that teachers were probationary for 2 years, and now it's 3 years. So that will change our look a little bit, and you'll see that represented in the new chart.
So do we have a motion? Second?
Second?
Gabriella? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So,
Nancy?
yeah, one of the teachers on the first year is one that we also have a resignation for, so that was just.
Okay.
That shouldn't, yeah, that shouldn't be on there. Which one are you seeing,
Okay, maybe
the city?
I'm on. Nope, I think I'm on.
Okay, I was gonna say that would be in the.
Nope, I'm okay.
Okay, thank you.
Tina?
I just, can you clarify our role with this in this process? Because obviously, you know, we don't know these individual teachers, and I assume this is the recommendation to move these folks forward, but,
Yes.
so just, I mean, we have to approve it because it's similar to like the hiring? I mean, it's sort of like just a formality, it seems like, right?
Well, this is the recommendation that is brought forward from our superintendent, from administration, and it has to be done at this time of year in order for a contract to be issued for the next year.
That's correct. So a probationary teacher has a 1-year contract. And each year, we either decide to bring them back, or if they're not on this list, they're not coming back. And so it's basically like when we brought them forward to you to be hired the first time. They're basically being rehired for another year. And they don't have,
So then you do another contract for the next year?
Yes, and that's how it will work each year until they're on a continuing contract, and then that's why you don't see them. We don't bring forward continuing contract people because it's kind of automatic that they're continuing contract unless there's an issue through the evaluation process or something and someone's non-renewed or.
So does their contract fall into the same with teachers' contracts as a whole, and do the benefit changes or any of those things apply to these folks?
What do you mean by benefit
Well, if there's
changes?
any changes, like when you do new contracts for teachers, does it apply to these folks? as
Yes,
well?
so if there's a 3% raise for teachers, there's a 3% raise for a probationary teacher, or if we had you have to pay 10% of your insurance, they would follow under the same thing. So they're under a teacher contract, they just are only, they're only hired for 1 year.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, now we have some budget work to do. First, we need to approve the 2014-2015 school budget, which we had at our last meeting, a lot of discussion around that. But Tina has some other adjustments based on some revenue changes.
So,
And Lauren passes out a bunch of information.
so the first thing that I want to talk to you about is the sheet that looks like this, and it has the tax impact.
Do you want a motion before or after, Tina? Move to approve the budget? I move to approve the budget. How about that?
All right, let's, and we have a second. All right, now we
Let's
can have
chat
some
away.
discussion. Thank you, Joe.
So, we have some good news to share. The updated 279s have been given to superintendents. They haven't been voted on yet, but they're saying that this is a pretty stable allocation. And where we were worried that we would be losing some money, we are actually gaining $7,000. So pretty stable, there's no big increase, but there's also no loss, so that makes us feel really comfortable with the proposal that we talked about last time. So we know that our insurance came in at 0%, so we had $126,000 that was allocated for insurance increases. When we went to the community presentations, we heard some feedback from them. One of them was that they, and this was spoken really strongly at Poland, but we also heard some of this conversation when we were at Mechanic Falls, that our selectmen and town leaders were concerned about how low our capital improvement lines were. When we have our expected repairs done next year, it leaves about $35,000 in that line. And of course, when you have five buildings, some of them aging, that's not very much money. So our recommendation from those conversations with our town leaders is to increase what we were going to allocate for our capital improvement line. We had initially had in our budget $80,000. Now we are going to recommend $130,000 in there. That gives us an additional $50,000. And the other piece of information that came up repeatedly through this board and also at these meetings was if we were approved for 3 buses, why were we only asking for 2? And again, it was to be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers and not have much of an impact on their tax costs. And with this, so since that money is in here and we felt pretty strongly that that was supported, we're recommending that $18,000 be used to purchase that bus, knowing that it will be fully reimbursed to us over the next 5 years. And that leaves $58,000 of the $126,000 that we could put back for tax relief for our taxpayers. And so this sheet that you have in front of you would show that that's an $18.76 annual change for Mechanic Falls, $18.03 for Minot, and $18.93 for Poland, or just over $1.50 per month for per $100,000 house. So we feel like we're being able to fill a gap that we were being really conservative on, and knew we were maybe not asking for what we really needed comfortably, but we're also able to give a good portion of that money back to our tax base. And you will see that on this form that our local budget, well, actually you can't see it on this form, I don't think, but our local budget is actually only increasing by $34,000 for the local contribution, which is really low compared to what we anticipated before we saw that we were getting a lot of increase in our state subsidy. So, do you have any questions on this sheet and the impact on our taxpayers with the budget? I also had asked Lauren to give you the final budget financials for next year, the full budget, so you have the latest with all of the information in there. And I don't know if you have any questions on that. We've all seen seen it before and went through the presentation, so I'm assuming no, but I did want you to, you have that, the latest one that has, on the front, you'll see the total, on that front page, you see the total revenues, you see the state revenues, and then, of course, each building by all of their account lines.
So this is with the 58,000,
Not in here.
not in here.
Yes.
Okay. And the bus and those kind of things?
Those are in here.
In here.
So, so
these
this-
two sheets are in line?
Yes.
These two.
So, this sheet that has, everything includes an adult education, the 70,000 that we have for adult ed, 130,000 for capital improvement, and 95,000 for the feasibility study.
Does anybody else have any questions? So this would be, if we approve this, this is the budget that we're going to move forward to in terms of presentation, and then to referendum. So, any more questions? All right, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? That was unanimous. So now we have some paperwork that we all need to sign, and Lauren has put on here, sign here. So there's the big warrant one, which I'll sign and then send it.
Scott, nice job getting us that budget.
We had a very cooperative budget committee, and I thought the process went really smooth. We had good participation with our town representatives and also with our board, so.
It was a nice collaborative project, I thought. And then you're going to see what looks like three that look exactly alike, and that's because we need to sign one for each of the 3 towns, and these ones have it by your name. So there are 3 that look alike. Move on to our next piece of business.
Can we,
Yes.
oh,
Tina,
just,
I mean-
can we remind everyone of the dates?
Yep.
Do we know? I was just looking
Yeah,
to
and I've got it part of my report. I will,
Oh,
I'll
okay,
do it then if
good.
that's okay.
No, that'd be great.
Moving on to our agenda adjustment, is that we do have a retirement letter from Arthur Reed. And I will just say that.
That smile on his face.
What's that about, Arthur? Just saying. And I will just say that I worked with Arthur for 9 years at Elm Street and 1 year at Minot. And it was a pleasure to work with him. That he's a person of great integrity, and that he always made decisions based on what was best for kids. And even though I understand his reason to retire, to spend extra time with his grandkids, because that's exactly what I did, he will be missed, his experience and his skills. So thank you, Arthur. We do need to vote on this.
So you mean he can't go?
Do we have to let him go?
I know.
I don't know.
I have to say that Jen actually brought this up, that he had 39 years of experience of saying, you know, can we hold him to 1 more year? You know, make it nice 40.
My babysitting job awaits me.
Oh. So do we?
Yeah, it doesn't hurt that the babies are in England.
In England.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, that's great.
So do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those that would regretfully approve. Thank you, Arthur.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And we have some other resignations, which you want to talk about, too?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, I'm just gonna find it, yes, I was gonna say, or Rick. We have two resignations, oh, thank you. We have two resignations from PCS. One of them is Jillian Martin, she is our music teacher. And the other one is Cassie LeBrecq, and she is a sixth grade position. So you can see they have, Cassie LeBrecq, which was a great experience for her, and she learned a great deal from her experience, and we'll take that with her. And again, Jillian said thank you for the supporting the opportunities that the district has provided me during the past 2 years of shorter time period, and wish the district the best of luck. So
we need to also vote on those. Motion?
Motion to approve both resignations?
Is there a second?
Second.
Second is that. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That was unanimous.
Can I just ask, we had talked before about doing exit interviews, and is that something, because I know that was something you were interested in doing and sort of starting, and
we will do exit interviews for all staff who leave this year.
oh, that'd be great.
Okay, now we're going to move on to policies. And this is a second and final reading on the use of school facilities and grounds and the guidelines that go along with that. And this is and we had some public participation at the beginning of our meeting around this, and also Tina has a letter that was sent from the selectmen and
Yes, Arlen Sanders sent me a letter. I believe it was in your packet. I will read it for those at home to hear. He wrote, "To whom it may concern, I'm writing this letter at the request of the Minot Board of Selectmen to emphasize their dissatisfaction with the decision to require liability insurance from parties using school facilities. It is the belief of the board that this school, specifically Minot, should be used as a community center, and that requiring additional liability insurance by the user is a burden that should not be incurred by the user. While the school was owned by the town of Minot, that was the policy. The board feels that the RSU should have ample coverage on their own, and if not, they should get the additional coverage. It is also felt that the RSU can get the additional coverage at a far less cost than private individuals. If there is a concern about damage to the school from allowing use of the facilities, then maybe who is allowed to use the facilities should be looked at closer rather than penalizing all parties that use the facilities. This is the opinion of the Minot Board of Selectmen, and we feel that the school budget for Minot that has gone from under $1 million a year to over $1.7 million in 6 years is enough of a burden on taxpayers in Minot, and those taxpayers would likely be the users of the facilities."
do we have a motion first, and then we can discuss the policy?
Move to approve, final reading, second and final.
Second? Second. Do we have some discussion? Ed?
Is there any reason why a town couldn't get insurance for its groups? The town itself?
No, there's not. Not that I know of, because like I would say, when you consider, like the town of Poland, their rec department has it. So other groups have insurance. The town itself probably has insurance, and if they sponsored a group through their town, I'm assuming that would work just as if, that's similar to what the rec's doing, basically.
So isn't that I can answer? Town could sponsor,
Yes.
and then there would be insurance.
I'm assuming so. Kim, do you want to come up and weigh in as questions come up? Kim's been working on this with facilities committee quite intensively, so she may have something to add. It feels like a long walk. I feel like I sit back in the chair.
So
Did
Kim,
you hear the
my question,
Kim?
my question was basically, why can't a town sponsor a group and use the town's insurance in a school?
Right. I don't know that there's any reason why that couldn't happen.
So when we had talked about, like in Mechanic Falls, like a historical society may already be under the town, a lot of, so I think there were several of them that is like that. So that's essentially what they're doing when the historical society from Mechanic Falls uses the schools. They are covered because they're part of the town group. Scott?
How many claims have been made against our insurance company caused by damages by outside groups?
I don't know of any claims that have been made, and I don't think it's kind of like having insurance on your car. It's not, you don't do it after the fact, you do it before you have the damage, and that's the way we're looking at this. We're really, this is a standard, expectation for use of facilities all over the state. Kim, I know, has shared some information. Kim, do you want to speak on that?
Sure. Just that majority of schools in Maine do have a use of school facilities and grounds, and part of that is the requirement to have liability insurance, and that information comes from Maine School Management Association, and they're the authority, really, when you're talking about districts and what kind of policies you should have in place. And so what had happened, I'm going to go back just a little bit, we had last year, I think, when Mike was here, and he noticed that we didn't have a use of facilities policy, which is unusual. School districts always have those. And so he had started the work at that time, and then, of course, when I came last summer, I was given the job to do some research and find out some information about that, which I did. What I learned pretty quickly was that we're not consistent across our own district, so that schools in Poland have been asking groups for liability insurance. That's been a normal practice. However, the school Elm Street School and Minor Consolidated School have not been asking for that liability insurance, and I know part of our goal is to be consistent across the district. And so when I talked to MSMA and said, how many schools do this? And they said the majority of Maine schools do this, and it is a thing to protect all taxpayers from potentially expensive repairs and or claims that would cause our insurance premiums to increase, and that increase would be a 7-year increase. What you notice, what we have here is we have both the use of school facilities policy, and then we also have the facility use guidelines. And if you were at the board meeting a month ago, you probably remember the sheriff's deputy coming to talk to us about the fact that we should add into the use guidelines at some point that if there are larger groups, we should have police and fire department presence as well. So that's something that's not in there because we haven't had a committee meeting since that time. So that would be something that we could come back to you and ask for that tweak in the guidelines at a later date. Tina, could also say I'd like to thank the Gilpatricks because we had the chance to talk, Mr. Gilpatrick and I had the chance to talk after one of the public budget informational meetings, in which case you were sharing some of the things that you shared with the board tonight, and I had said, please come so that the board can hear. So thank you for doing that.
Jen?
No, the Gilpatricks had mentioned coming in for like the dictionary program, and you said a junior history club, right? Now, you come in during the regular school day when that happens, so they would still be able to come in and do that. It would be if like their history group was meeting after school, they'd have to fill out a form?
Right.
Is that?
Right, correct.
Okay.
And
correct.
provide insurance.
Right.
For after school.
Which they do. Which they do.
Okay.
Mariella?
I just wanted to.
I wonder, and we've had a lot of discussions around this, and it is a really difficult issue. I know there are a few districts, and I wondered if it's something that we might be able to change some wording to say on A that a certificate of insurance may be required as appropriate to the particular use. And I know that we've had discussions around different scenarios and ways that the schools are used. I do feel that if it's a group of people who are using it for a regular athletic event, such as, volleyball, weekly volleyball, or whatever, that in that case, they should be able to somehow get a certificate of insurance, because first of all, it's more of a risk-taking activity, it's a regular activity. My concern is the one-time use of the building by a community group such as the suppers, which I would hope, and we could also have a policy that if it is something like a supper where there's use of a kitchen, and maybe it already is a policy, that there has to be a staff member present. And I know we've already put a lot of time into this, but I'm just wondering if we can somehow come up with some guidelines where we do have categories of use. So for something like the cheering competition or the volleyball groups, those are higher risk, more people, insurance is much more necessary.
One thing that came up when we were talking about how they're used is that the public suppers actually have quite a lot of risk because they're working in the kitchen.
And that was why I was saying you might...
boiling waters and stoves and hot objects and sharp objects and things like that. So those are usually one-shot deals, but they do provide quite a bit of liability risk for bodily harm, but also for damage if there were a fire or something like that.
And I know
that's the only challenge with the suppers. I agree. We definitely want to be able to have some community suppers and fundraisers. But.
And I know when we had, for instance, when PTA was doing them, we would have to have someone who was a staff member working there with us so that there was someone on hand who knew the facility.
Joe? So I get the spirit of Mariella's request, and so I think that it feels like we're swinging the pendulum to no policy to a policy, and so I would suggest that maybe we swing the pendulum all the way out to the requirement and then see what happens over the course of a year or a period of time, and then kind of have things shake out somewhere in between the complete lack to what we have here and something that is more reflective of the need and the use.
Julie, have we gone through the list of people who use the school and find out if they have insurance or how they can go about being covered under someone else and know how many are actually affected by this?
So we have some information. I'd asked Don King to gather names of companies that actually offer liability insurance for groups who would want to use a school. So I have that information, and we've been working on those lists, but we haven't had a committee meeting since the last board meeting. One thing I'd like to say as well is that the use of facilities policy, we really need that. That part, we need guidelines, because the goal of that is to establish the priorities for use and to avoid conflicts and to make sure that we indicate which conduct would be prohibited on school grounds, and also to allow for fees for certain activities and spaces so that the school is not incurring those costs, whether that's for painting the field or having a staff member present during a dinner, whatever the case may be. So we need to have those guidelines no matter what happens.
So we don't know how many groups are affected by the insurance. That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That goes back to there are a couple of things. The records aren't very well kept at some of the facilities, so we don't know that we have all of them, but many of the groups like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, historical, all of the rec, anything that goes through rec, they're already covered. Anything that's through adult ed is already covered. So there weren't huge numbers of groups that were uncovered, but I don't know that we have a comprehensive list.
Well, I'm going to get back to what you said initially, which is we're not sure that we know of every single person who's ever used, who's used the school.
Part of that comes back to our need for guidelines and policy.
Exactly. So we have records of all those things.
So I just wonder
right.
how many are actually already covered and don't know it, and might be able, like the Historical Society could be covered under the town of Minot. I think we just said, and so
could be.
That's
the town of Minot.
Tina?
I think most of you are probably aware that I'm not supportive of the liability component, and I think that's really the hot potato in this policy. I think everyone agrees there has to be some structure and some standards around the use of the facilities. So I don't think anyone's in disagreement about that. I think the one piece that is difficult is number 8. So I think we need to look at how we want to handle that. And I just feel like in the town of Minot, as she said, we've had that school for 60 years. Snowmobile Club used it years ago. Everyone's used it. They've done dinners there. We've never had an incident there. And so I think you have to look at the whole picture, and it's kind of like, it's going to be a huge barrier, and it's a huge roadblock for people to be able to use a community building, which in Minot is the only community building. So, you know, we are a district, and so we are together in this. So, you know, I'm talking about Minot because that is the only community building that we have in Minot. Now, in Poland, there's other opportunities. I think there's other buildings. Mechanic Falls, I know they use the Legion Hall a lot for dinners and that sort of thing. We don't have that in Minot, and we are one union now. So I think we need to think about all of these buildings, how it affects all of our community members, and whether you're from Minot or not, it still affects the community members here. And it's changing a process for no apparent reason, other than, geez, shouldn't we have that? Somebody thought we should probably have that, so we want to add that in. I just think we need to, there hasn't been a claim.
Jack?
Well, I think, to speak to one part of that, we definitely need a facilities use policy because it's highlighted by the fact that we don't know exactly all the groups and who has access and when they have access. That's huge for us. That's huge for us in heating, lighting, a multitude of things about the use of the buildings. I do, however, agree somewhat with component A, only because I'd like to see that we have more options to present to the individuals who have to do something, who have to come up with some liability insurance. I would like to have something a lot more concrete to say to them in the way of, this is how you will go about this. This is how we are referencing this to everybody. We kind of thought we had some more options on the table before because we were talking about adult ed and maybe using that as an umbrella to cover some folks, but we found out that that's not necessarily the case and not something we can do. So I guess I would just like to see a little bit more there added to that piece of it.
Missy?
Well, my only thing is Poland's been doing it, and I've been to suppers at the Poland school. I mean, so they're having fundraisers. I went to a fundraiser this last year at the Poland Community School. So somehow it was for somebody that died. I don't think they certainly didn't go out and get their own liability. I don't know how they did it, but so it happens. And they don't usually have them any place else in Poland. I mean, Poland's much bigger than mine, and I don't live in Poland, but they still use the school in Poland. And they acquire the insurance in Poland, and I don't know if it's seemed to have stopped people from using it or where else they're meeting or, you know, I don't know. But and I've been to suppers in Mechanic Falls, you know. You have to pay for the Legion, so.
Rick, didn't you say at our last meeting that there were a couple of people that, once you told them about insurance, didn't follow through on filling out their facility?
There was one,
Yeah, one.
yeah, there was one that did not follow through, filling out the facilities use paperwork after they were told about the liability requirement. And another individual that still wanted to use the facilities without insurance and had to be asked to leave. So we did have we didn't have any claim, but we have had the new scoreboard in the PCS gym has been damaged through baseball season, but because that falls under rec, Scott Siegel has taken care of that entirely. I don't know if he's making a claim on his insurance or they're just paying it out of pocket, but there has been quite a bit of the plexiglass broken on that new scoreboard. And it's not intentional damage. It just, kids are playing baseball in the gym because they couldn't be outside. It's going to happen sometimes. So.
Matt, did you have your hand up?
Well, yeah, I think the two of them kind of covered it, but I was in Tina. I'm with Tina 100% in that it's really hard to vote on something and approve it when I know that we haven't provided enough information. I don't think that I can wholeheartedly say, yes, I approve it, because with this liability factor there, and I have said it before in a prior meeting when we first started discussing this, that if this is something that we do follow through with as far as the liability insurance portion of it, I feel like we need to do our townspeople a service of providing them with information where, how, who, what, so the people who are unaware of even where to begin have something to look at to say, okay, this is what I need to do, or this is who I need to contact, and make our townspeople and town office, town manager aware that there's other options, and that we're not just asking the town, we don't want to pull the rug out from underneath of anybody. And it's, I think, a good faith service for us to do a little extra work, unfortunately, especially for the town of Minot, to provide them with that, to try to make peace a little.
I don't want to just repeat myself, but I guess I'm not getting it. Why just can't the town put it under their sponsorship?
don't know.
Just like the rec department does in Mechanic Falls and Minot. It's insurance. I mean, I wouldn't let anybody use my business place without giving me insurance. I mean,
Yeah. Jen?
Well, that's, what you said, Tina, about car insurance. We haven't had a claim yet. We will get a claim. And that's the thing. You have car insurance, you hope you don't get into an accident, but we all know accidents happen. And I understand the concerns in Minot. There are options, and maybe we do need to communicate them better to particular groups so that they know that there are options, but we haven't had a claim yet, but we will.
Right, it's not that we won't have a claim. I mean, I
Right.
agree that, yes.
I mean, we haven't,
There
yeah.
will be a
But-
time that it will
Right.
happen, and we're gonna be thankful that we've got this in place.
Right.
But we really, really need to do the extra legwork, I think, to make it very clear that these are the options and this is how it needs to be followed. And I don't think that this right here says that.
Scott?
I think, Ed, the answer is that the town of Minot may not want to do that. And I think
That's the point.
But I don't think it's a problem. I
Thank
think
you.
that what we just did with this, with the fundraiser for the Labby Farm, was this amazing community outreach. I mean, the place was packed, raised money for them, and to have to go to the town and ask them to take on that liability is something that they've never done. The other piece is, I think we've all dealt with insurance companies, and frankly, I'm not even sure that having $100,000 makes a difference. They're still going to go after our insurance company, and our rates are still going to go up. So I completely get that we're being told to do this and all that. But at the same time, we're taking a community who wants to come into our school, use our school, and feel good about it, and we're not making them feel good about it. So I'm not saying I don't at some point agree with this, but today I certainly can't agree with the policy as it's written.
We did the Minot Enrichment Program. It was a summer program for 6 weeks. I was on the board for that for several years. We had our own liability insurance. We used the Minot School for that. In the gym component, we use that. It's very detailed in what you have to fill out to be able to then get a quote on what your liability coverage would be, who's going to be using it, what are the ages of the people, what activities are they doing, and you have to fill out all this information, then get your quote back. So in answer to your question about the town of Minot, I don't know. I don't know what they have right now for liability insurance. I don't know if that would cover like a community dinner, but again, that's an avenue, that's a place to look. That's where I feel like we're falling down on this. I feel like we need a policy, but I feel like we don't have, as many folks have said here, we don't have it detailed out. We can't just say, okay, that's it, doors are closed and you have to have liability insurance, and if you don't, so sorry. And many of the programs that go on, even in Mechanic Falls and Poland, are not covered under REC because they would have the same stipulations. And I'd be curious to know for that dinner, for that person who passed away, how did they have liability insurance, and whose liability insurance was that under? Because that I don't think
put it on.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been somehow under the school liability, because I don't know an individual that'd be able to do that. So I just think we need to do a little more diligence. You had mentioned you talked with other school districts, and they have sort of ways that they've been doing this. Well, how have they been directing their community members who want to use the school? What have they been doing to get I don't feel like we have those answers yet. So that's my hesitation.
So just a couple of things, just for us to keep on our minds as well. Currently, our insurance coverage we are agreeing that we are already asking groups for liability insurance. So that's in there. And so when I asked about what that might mean for our costs if we were not, they said, well, are you telling us you are not and you want us to give you a price? And I said, no, we're working on this. We need to know. But that is something I think we just need to keep in mind. And the other part, too, is that we had brought up, at least in the committee, that we would look at a phase-in time period for this, so that we had, wouldn't happen until next school year, for example, so that people had time to pursue some of the places that offer liability insurance and find out what that means. So it wouldn't be just a closed door right now, you have to have it. And then I think that that's a reasonable thing. From what I understand from MSMA and also from other school districts is that you have, this is what it is, you're expected to get it, and you can call your own insurance company and they can tell you where you can go with that. And I don't think that there's a lot more done. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do some more. I'm just saying that that's generally what it is.
I think, following on what Kim said, if we were honest with our insurance carrier, our rates would immediately go up. Immediately. And if they were to find out that there was a group that used the gym and we didn't get insurance from, and we claimed in our own policy, we'd go into a high-risk pool.
Right.
So, those are
Things to
those are
consider.
those are just basic insurance underwriting
Right.
best practices that they go by.
Okay, Scott?
Tag on what Ed said. Apparently, our insurance company doesn't realize that we do not require liability insurance.
Well, we sign on it saying that we are.
And we do in some,
We do in Poland. We do in the Poland.
For 3 of our schools, but not in
Right.
2 of them.
Okay, so I guess what I would want to know is, what's the cost differential between no liability requirement and a liability requirement? What does that cost? And then go to the town and say, are you willing to have us increase our budget because of this liability requirement? And put it to the tax. They're paying, the towns are paying the bill anyway, the taxpayers are paying the bill. If they're willing to do that, and they think that that's an acceptable risk or acceptable cost, then say we waive the liability requirement.
Can I make a recommendation?
Yeah.
So, we have a motion on the floor to approve the policy. And I think it would be helpful if the board votes and decides if they approve the policy or not. And if they don't approve the policy because they're not comfortable, it's your policy, then there could be a motion to approve the facilities use with the exclusion of the liability until further work is done. But it's really important that we at least have some basic guidelines on the facilities use to go forward with. And we do feel like I'm going to put this back on Kim, more her than me, but we being in the committee, put a lot of time into the research. And we're at a place where us doing more legwork, we don't have the capacity to keep doing all of the legwork for talking to insurance companies and all of that. And other organizations that are using the Poland communities have clearly either called their own insurance companies or had access to them. So at some point, we just need to vote and see how this board feels about the decision, and then if they want to make a different motion.
Julie?
So would we make the motion right after the vote?
Well,
Well,
depends on if it
Unless
passes
there's
or
a
not.
motion.
I'd actually like to make an amended motion,
Well, we've got a motion on the floor.
and I can amend that. Sure I can.
No.
No.
I can.
Yeah.
We haven't voted yet.
Yeah.
Who's got the proper rules of orders, but that's fine,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, we comfortable with that then? So if there's a motion that's been seconded, so all those in favor of the policy as it stands here? In favor of? Opposed? I think that was obvious.
I mean, do you want me to calculate it, or?
Why don't you?
Can't tell.
And Steve votes no too.
This is me, this is Steve. Yeah, Steve also told me and said he supports, but we also know that you can't do that.
Okay. So, the people that are for policy, I need to see. And
gonna go down the line here. Okay, and then again, I'll start over there.
Because I'm not a board member. But if I could vote. Now, only sometimes, like when budget stuff, since we've done a lot of stuff together.
It does not pass. Do we have a motion? Mariella?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the article with the policy with the amendment that A says a certificate of insurance, proof of liability of $100,000 may be required as appropriate to the particular use.
Do you have a second for that?
Just so you know, that's a nightmare.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say that's gonna be
Who
hard.
decides that? And,
Wait, is there a second, though?
We don't have a second, so. we don't
Motion
have a second.
fails with
Do you
lack
have
of
a
a second.
policy committee that says in this
We
case
don't have a
will
second,
pass?
so
What's that? There's no second?
no second.
I'll make a second then, just to get the vote.
Make a second. And so we have any discussion on that? I'm hearing Tina say that would be difficult to,
Tina doesn't want to make those decisions. But if this committee would like to make those decisions, I'm all set. It just, I would need some guidelines on, or Kim would.
Or building principals would.
That would be really difficult for the administration to decide when we think it's a liability and we should ask for it and not. So we would definitely need some really clear guidelines on how you make those decisions.
I hear what you're saying, I think, because that sort of, that develops into another component of this policy to really clearly identify who falls into that category or not. So I would like us to think about maybe having the wording be that we recommend, or we highly recommend people consider having liability insurance, you know, something like that, so we could have something in there about liability insurance, so that if people have it, great, that's awesome, that's part of our process, but if they don't have it, we're capturing that too, which to some folks' point, we'll be able to clearly identify in the next 6 months or so who has liability insurance, who doesn't, and then determining what some avenues may be for them moving forward if we go to mandating liability insurance in the future.
So that would have to be another motion after this one, which has been.
I'm just saying, think about it. I didn't make a motion.
okay. So we have a motion on the floor, and we have a second. Any more discussion? Grace?
I just think that our insurance company didn't ask if we were recommending it, they were asking if we had it or not have it. So I would say that we would just omit A totally for right now until we decide 100%.
Yeah.
The motion on the floor is the change in the wording on A. So are we ready to vote on that?
Change in wording too.
Carrie?
I'm with Tina. Like, I think the high school is impacted more than any other school for the volume of people that request space here. If I have some dance school in Lewiston who wants to put on a 10-hour show, and they charge rent, but that's gonna cover nowhere near if they break something in the auditorium. You guys can decide liability insurance or not, whatever, but please don't put may. It's either, we're either gonna do it or we're not gonna do it, because I'm the one who signs those forms. I'm the one who says yes or no. Each of us will do that for our buildings, but that just puts us in a really bad position. There's just way too many forms come through my desk about people requiring, and I gotta spend time on that. Like, seriously, I have 13 probationary teachers, and I'm spending time on, do they have insurance? Are we gonna charge them rent? Because we don't have a policy, so we would love to have one, but I spend time on it, just so you know. It's on the list of things that I spend time on, that I would love to stop spending time on if there's a checklist. And it's either they have it or they don't, they're doing it or they're not, and it would simplify things tremendously.
Ed?
Carrie, I just have a question. How would you evaluate whether XYZ dance school should allow?
You guys will tell me.
Should allow
I'm
500?
going to evaluate whether or not.
Because you want to prove it?
If you tell me that I don't need to ask them for liability insurance, I have no trouble asking them to pay rent. They're an outside group, they're for profit, like, we shouldn't be giving our facilities away. We've been charging rent at the high school for a while, FYI, because we don't have weekend custodians anymore, so it requires us to bring someone in for the day, and that's overtime. So we have to recoup those costs somehow. When we used to have weekend custodians, we didn't necessarily worry so much about that. Around the liability insurance, you used to tell me if I'm making them have it or not.
But
I would assume for an outside private organization, they should have their own, but if I'm not asking, I'm not asking.
So just so I'm clear, XYZ dance school with 250 people coming with no insurance can come to our school.
If you tell me I'm not asking for liability insurance, what I'll do is charge them rent.
What's
I'll
that?
follow the guidelines wherever you guys-
Currently, that's
Currently,
what.
she requires it.
Currently, I'm requiring them liability insurance, because Mike said last year that
But-
how can you be so crazy not to ask it? So
But-
we started asking, because I guess it sounds.
Sorry to have a conversation with her, directly through the chair. So you're saying you would change that now and not require them to have liability insurance, XYZ dance school with 250
I've been
people?
operating the way I was instructed last year by the last year's superintendent to begin asking for liability insurance because there was no facility use policy. So I have been operating same as Rick. He got the same word. I think it fell on ears in different communities differently for the very reasons you guys are having conversations. But for the high school, it's pretty simple because we have so many outside groups using the facility. A lot of them fall under the rec department, a lot of them fall under other organizations, but we rent the place. We're not making tons of money, but we do have private organizations using the space.
But
So
if
I
we-
have been asking for liability insurance just like Rick has.
But will you still continue to do that even though we vote today not to require liability insurance?
No.
I follow the policies of the RCCG school board like I.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
I think there's a difference between requiring it and asking a question on whether they have liability insurance. So, many groups, if they travel somewhere, regardless of where they are, they still have liability insurance. So I think Dance XYZ, if they have liability insurance, it's still gonna cover, even though we're not mandating, they have it for their use of the facilities here, their insurance is gonna cover them, just like Boy Scouts does and Girl Scouts and all of them. So that's not really gonna be an issue. If, our issue right now is we don't know who has liability insurance and who doesn't. If they don't have liability insurance, we don't know how to guide them and direct them. So that's where the concern is.
Okay, we have a motion that's been proposed and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Can you remind us of the motion again?
The motion
My one motion.
was
I had to vote for my
under
motion.
A, where it says shall be required, it was may be required.
Okay.
So all those in favor? All those opposed? So that motion does not carry. So do we have a motion? Julie?
I'm gonna need help with this. I would like to make a motion to approve the school facilities and grounds policy with exception of A, until we have further information on how to guide our community.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Tina?
So,
Any discussion?
yeah, so I think that we are looking to put a policy in place, and what you're trying to do is come up with a practical application of the policy, and that's not policy. So I'm all for helping people understand how to put this into place, and that's, so Kim told us this is getting phased in, so we have from now, if we were to approve it, until whenever we're putting it into place, the new school year in September. That's quite an amount of time to do that, to do the PR tour and to provide people information of how they use this. I think the most highly impacting information that I got tonight was when Kim said, when our insurance committee finds out that we're not requiring this, what's going to immediately happen? We haven't budgeted for that, so there goes the $58,000 that we were giving back to the taxpayers, I would assume.
That's an assumption.
What's that?
That's an assumption. We don't know that. Right?
No, we don't, but we do know that the insurance will go up. I think that's a pretty safe assumption.
Is he?
I was gonna say, and, I mean, I'm not one that wants to necessarily have our stuff go up, but I would almost think we have to call our insurance company.
Right.
I mean, I hate being ones that are lying to our insurance company. I mean, to say, oh, we're requiring this, and if we say tonight we're not.
Yeah, it's an integrity
We really
issue.
need to call them and say, we're not, and deal with the consequences of whatever that cost is gonna be, because I don't like being.
Which one of the consequences may be that we decide we don't have a choice. We have to.
Well, right, if they said it's gonna go this high, we may be back here next month saying, oh, wow. But the other thing to remember, you know, Poland is now requiring that. We do this now, they're not requiring it anymore. So I could go rent the gym tomorrow, or Mind It, or wherever, who needed insurance before, and now they don't. It's very confusing. I mean, people have gone out and bought, maybe, insurance, or added things to their things. Poland Rex might have increased their liabilities, or done whatever, because that policy was in place, and now we're saying, oh, now you don't need it again, and next month we may go back and say, oh, now you need it again. It's just, it's getting very confusing.
Grace? Or we could just say that the schools will continue in their current practice until we come back with the revised policy. I mean, I love everything on here, and I even love the liability piece. I just think that there's a lot of confusion surrounding it.
Which is different than the motion that is on the floor. So we need to vote on the motion that is on the floor, which was Julie's motion, which was seconded.
Could we remind us what that is again?
That was,
it was
basically to.
Same thing without A.
Take out A, and provide support for those people that,
And we're talking about the one, right? We're not talking about both policies. We're doing the first policy right now, right? There's two policies. We're talking about,
okay, so we have Julie's motion on the floor, which has been seconded. All those in favor?
Probably gonna have to.
Sorry.
We should have an app for this, Linda, where we could just press the button.
Yeah, right one.
I bet you could. Use our smartphones.
Enough for when he's gone.
See what the outcome was.
Yeah.
All right, let's start down
I
at
hope
this
I didn't
end,
say
and
that.
we're going
Those in favor.
Those in favor.
Those in favor. We're in favor, Scott.
No, she's doing that side of the table.
Yeah, we're still doing the in favor.
What are we doing? Switch arms.
Okay, so my brother passed away last spring, and when he came to town, there was no public building with restrooms. So he used the school, and their policy was may require. So they didn't require insurance from us. But, you know, if I was gonna have a basketball game every week, I'd expect to do it. So I get it, that is, it carries. Oh, I do that. But that's why we would have to have guidelines.
Start back over here.
No, it was Mountain View. Troy.
If this isn't actually, we don't currently have a policy in place, then the schools shouldn't have to change what they're doing tonight if we're not. Okay. The schools that are asking for it can just continue to ask.
The motion does not carry.
Motion does not carry. We can continue to do this for a long time, or we can table it. I mean, we don't have to continue that discussion now, but if you decide not to, I think we need to decide what it is that we need to do so that we can, as a group, resolve this issue. Joe?
Scott had his hand up first. So.
Scott?
I think it's important. I think the sticking point is I think it's important for us to go back to our insurance company certain schools within our RSU that are not currently requiring insurance. Our school board is trying to determine the best course of action if we don't require extra costs. And then use that number to not only the school board, but also
So are you making a proposal that we table it until we have that information?
I think that we do have a choice.
Okay, so
That's
that's motion?
Is that a motion? Okay, that's a motion.
Scott has made that motion. Is there any second to that motion?
I would second that.
Okay.
Can you repeat it? I'm
To
unclear.
the motion is to table, Scott?
Table until we know what our insurance costs would be if we did not require liability insurance.
Okay, that's a motion is second. Now we can discuss. Joe?
So I think that's a great idea. And the only thing I'm hesitant, it's not part of your motion, so I'm happy, but I don't think that we should turn over our decision-making to town officials or anyone else. I think that we should get the facts and then make a decision. We're a pretty smart board and we know, and we can make those good decisions. I don't think we should poll everybody all the time.
I just say be careful what we ask for, with our insurance carrier.
Yeah, and if.
What if I keep driving drunk all the time, how much I just think.
Julie? Do we only have one option for insurance coverage, or can we shop around?
We are currently in a contract with an insurance company, and we had every so many years you can notify them that you're either shopping out or you're staying with them, and we have had no increases in insurance costs for several years, and we're happy with our coverage. So we are staying. We chose to stay with them going forward for next year, so we are under contract.
So for one more year.
It's through MSMA. I can't remember the
I've got it written
name
down.
but
yeah.
If we look at the budget, it's actually listed, I think, or at least their initials.
Check it.
Jack?
I'm going to work.
I was under the impression that our liability had gone up, because I remember asking the question after we had the group from Augusta come through, if there was anything that we could implement that would help us to bring our costs back down after the increase.
Went up 18% this year for our liability, depending on, that was our average. Some like our board insurance went way down, some of our others went up. I think we do more than just liability through them. And so I think our overall, I can verify that with Wendy, I think our overall insurance costs have been pretty stable. But I'll check on that, and I'd be glad to do a report out about our overall insurance costs beyond liability.
So the motion is that it be tabled, and we have a second for that. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, motion carries, and we have tabled that until we have some more information.
You wanted to table it, you're unanimous?
Almost.
No.
Almost. Sorry, I lost the thread of the amendment, I apologize.
I move we pass policy KFR, second and final reading.
Second.
It's a fee schedule.
Second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, so we have discussion. Kim, is there anything that in this that is dependent on the first policy that we just tabled, or can we do the guidelines?
So the only thing would be the feedback that we got at the last board meeting about having something in here about larger groups, having a police and fire department presence up there, and we don't have that written in yet because we haven't had a committee meeting to do that work yet. But I mean, that's the only piece.
Who made a second on that? Okay, looks like that was it.
So does that mean we would have to vote and then re-vote, have another motion to add that part in?
The motion, so why don't we vote? Is there any more discussion? All those in favor of this? Oh. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Scott, are you?
I was distracted, I'm sorry.
Let's do that again. Linda's-
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be able to tell.
Okay. All right. The motion was the second guidelines to support those.
Yes.
There was a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Oh, I did not.
She's still.
Jeez. Jeez.
This is to accept as written?
Yes.
Without adding.
Without adding the larger
you can-
group or any of that.
But you could bring that back, right, you could have
You can revise it anytime.
Oh. Fine.
This is in favor.
Okay.
In favor.
Yeah, we just haven't got to that part yet,
I
that's
had it
all.
like a one-time thing. Is this something different? I mean, Dawn didn't specify that.
Now we're good. Let's do opposed.
Abandon that.
Is there anybody opposed to that? Okay, we have one person opposed, so.
If we can add it.
One opposed? Yep. Okay, so I think we're ready to move on.
That in there, yes, and then we'll have.
So is that
information
building-
on what the-
Is that
what our
Buildings and
insurance is gonna
Grounds
do,
that's
and
going
then
to address
we'll
that, or
have
is that the
too,
policy committee that's doing that? Is that Buildings and Grounds that's going to do the work to?
That's, yes.
Okay,
You.
administrative reports, we don't have any in here, but if anybody has something they'd like to share verbally.
I think Sean wanted to share a little bit about Camp Kiev.
Oh, really?
While he's getting up.
Everybody we brought came home. Just a fantastic experience once again. You know, just I really love the way that they work on building leaders with our students, and our hope with the 7th grade class is to bring them back from Kiev and continue to work on building leadership so that as they take over as our 8th graders next year, which is a huge responsibility, that they are ready to continue to carry the same kind of culture that we hope we're developing every day. And so that's going to be a real focus with our 7th graders for the remainder of this year around leadership, and then bringing our new students in for next year. But some really positive risk taking. Some kids struggled a little bit with some homesickness, but I think that's a challenge in itself, and it was great that they were able to overcome that, and that they could learn to support each other in new ways, and just the experience itself was fantastic. So very pleased about having that opportunity to do that with the kids.
And I would just say thank you to you and your staff, because I know that there are particular challenges when you're taking groups of kids overnight, and it's a lot of responsibility. And thank you to you and your staff for doing that.
I'm just teasing because you didn't say that in the senior class. They're seniors, it's all like, whatever, suck it up, you know. Can I just say a quick thing on Celebration and Learning Days are coming up. They're May 15th and 16th, and I just want to share with you one piece to illustrate how we've changed the senior project. What you have there is a guest column that appeared in Sunday's Sun Journal, written by Sabrina Lyon, who is a senior. She submitted it to the Sun Journal. I actually didn't know she was doing that, so when I opened the paper yesterday, I was like, holy cow. So the senior project has always been a research project in which they've had to determine the best way to do something. So they've had to compare their research in the past and give us reasons why. We've changed it this year so that whatever it is that they're researching, they actually have to do it, which has always been the pet peeve of mine, that they can talk about how I would coach a high school basketball team to a state championship. But they don't actually have to do that because they're in high school. They're not doing that. So kids are being required to have a real-world product or something that was completed in the real world. So in this case, Sabrina's working on an anti-bullying, cyberbullying campaign. She and I met this morning. She's going to be doing something next couple weeks. Another example I gave Tina was a student who was super inspired by the group that just went to Guatemala, Safe Passage. He was too late to sign up, but he thought it was so cool that he organized a dart tournament and raised $700 for them. So that's going to be what he's going to be presenting. So I think it'll be hit or miss this year in terms of how consistently awesome the kids do on doing their project, because this is our transition year. But I think we've made a change for the better in terms of the kids will be doing either service projects, building things. You know, I got a kid who says he's going to be building a wind turbine. We'll see how that works out. So those projects where kids actually did something in the past were great. We just never required it. So now we're requiring it. I'm working with another kid who's never run a 5K before, and he's signed up for Saturday. We'll see how that goes. Not sure how the training schedule's worked out. So he'll get to talk about maybe how it didn't go very well, and he ended up, you know, in the first aid tent. I don't know. We'll see. But they have to actually do the thing they said they're going to do, which is very exciting. So I just wanted to share that with you. You are welcome either of those days. When I have the program set, I will send that to Tina for her to share with all of you guys. It's open, the doors are open. You're welcome to come at any point, either of those 2 days, to watch the sophomores or the seniors present.
And what were the 2 days again, May 15th?
15th and 16th, yeah, 3 weeks. The panic in the air is palpable. Beautiful, love it.
And I heard that Mr. Reed has something he wants to share.
Yeah, I think Arthur wants to tell you about the science fair project coming up.
This is a conspiracy.
This Thursday, we're doing a science fair. We'll be setting up all day, and then in the evening, we're going to have a family night attached to the science fair. So we've had trouble in the past getting parents back, so we're going to do that so they'll come back to the projects and also tie literacy into fun activities based on science-type activities on Thursday night.
Thank you. So, report of the school chair. I did want to remind people, because I got an email today about the art show that is at Elm Street School on May 8th from 6 to 7. I wanted to say congratulations, and we're really glad that Joe and Ed were reelected. So, consistency is really important on the board, and so I really appreciate that they were willing to run again and that they were reelected. Strategic plan update. One of the things that we need to be thinking about is that annual public staff survey. So that's something that usually comes out of the Educational Policy Committee. We haven't had an opportunity to meet for a while. So I think Joe and Tina and I will talk about how we can come up with a plan to maybe to get that done fairly soon. We'll also be needing to think about evaluating our board goals sometime within the next month or so. The Superintendent Evaluation Committee met, so in your packet there were some minutes, and some of that impact you because that survey, which I want to thank Scott and Joe, who worked really hard on getting that, so it's out there in a format that I think is going to be really easy for people to work with. And we would ask that that be completed by May 7th. Do you want to talk, Joe or Scott, about that, how people access that, and how we're getting it out to them?
I believe, I can't tell the exact date, Joe may have it, an email is going to come out with a link to an online survey. You'll have a week to fill it out.
Yeah, I'll get it out to everyone tomorrow.
Right.
Okay. And then Joe's got a letter that explains the process. One of the important things to remember is that the raw data is going to be compiled and collated together, and so that give your evaluations, and we'll bring that all back together in a report to the board in an executive session in June.
Yes, we decided to go with an online survey. Scott set this, so this is the multi-page spreadsheet that we created. You might remember from months ago that we came up. So it's a lot. Mary and Scott and I all went through this. It's through Google, right? So Scott created this survey using this language. It goes relatively quickly. What I found, and you may find this as well, is that, and we added, so there's the for each one of these things. There's unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, and exemplary. We also added a column that says could not observe or not able to observe, not observed. And so just some, and it'll say this in the letter, but essentially that means you didn't see Tina, that doesn't mean she wasn't doing it. We just had no data that shows us one way or the other. Kind of the litmus test that I had in my mind was, if I were to choose proficient, how could I explain to Tina why I chose that? So that's kind of a good guideline to have. If you could back up how you chose that. If you can't do that, then probably was not observed, which is good data for Tina as well to see. So we also will, for anybody that doesn't have computer access, we can provide a paper version of this form, and you can still fill it out on paper, and we'll put it all into the tabulation form, and PricewaterhouseCoopers will. Yeah, so we also decided, I guess it's probably good to say, we decided that it would make sense that, so Tina is our employee, essentially, so she should have the ability to know what we all said. We won't necessarily broadcast that, but when we meet in executive session, she has that courtesy to know what we all said. The folks that all report to Tina, however, will be, I don't know what the word is, amassed, and she'll know themes. We'll still present themes from all of us, but if she has questions and wants to drill down, we'll provide somebody for her to follow up with.
So during this month, once we get that feedback, we'll be getting together, we'll be writing up a report, and on our meeting on June 9th, that report will be presented to the board in executive session, and then we'll vote on the status of her contract in public session following that. And I think the other thing to remember is that this is the first year that we're implementing this, so it's as much an evaluation of the process and the tool as it is of the superintendent, because we will obviously find those things that work in it and those things that didn't give us the information we needed or were hard to work with. So keep that in mind too as you do it, because that will be part of our discussion process after.
So do you already have it in place to mail Steve?
I do, it's
You
right.
know,
This
I think
is
he's the only one
This
that
is
I-
Steve's.
Yeah,
Yes.
doesn't have internet,
Yeah.
so, good.
So that, and then he can get it back to me, and I can put it in for him. Are there any other questions about that process? And as part of it, Tina will be doing her self-evaluation, which will also be part of that. So, report of the superintendent.
Most of the information I've already covered. I know you'll probably be glad to hear that. It's getting late. I do want to let you know that the Department of Ed is supposed to release the school grades. That hasn't happened yet, so we're still waiting on that. I shared that the 279s came out. I don't know if I did that when everybody was here or before. We were concerned about a drop in our funding, and we got a $7,000 increase, so we're happy about that. The teacher evaluation system was vetoed by the governor. So we are in a holding pattern trying to figure out what the details of that are going to be. And so that's making it challenging. And hopefully we will know relatively soon. The pilots were required to start in September. In the updated one, that wasn't required to start in September because they're so late in making the decision, but that was vetoed, so now we're back to, I think I'm supposed that we're required to start in September. So it's very confusing and frustrating, and we're hopeful that we'll have some information soon so we know what we need to work with for the evaluation process for next year, but I did want to give you an update on that. We have a committee that has started the work on it, and then we've kind of been stalled out for a little while since probably the last 2 months since we've met. And that's it. The Board of Selectmen's letter was already shared, so.
And some support staff new
Oh,
hires?
yes, sorry. We do have some new hires. You can see we have James Diambos, Ed Tech 3 for Poland Regional High School. And we have coaching staff that have been hired. We have Connor King for JV softball. We have Celeste Murphy for middle school softball and Matthew Gordon for middle school baseball. And we've already talked about the resignations.
Okay, and it's 9 o'clock, and we still have an executive session And I think by our policy, we need to vote to extend our meeting beyond 9 o'clock.
Before we do that, do the dates for the budget,
Oh,
do
okay,
we want to
sorry,
say
yeah.
that as part of the meeting?
Our next school board meeting is May 19th. The district budget meeting is May 12th, here in the auditorium, correct?
Yes.
So May 19th and May 12th.
Yeah,
What
May
time?
12th
Both
is the
at
district
6:30?
budget meeting.
Both at 6:30?
I believe they're
Our board meeting is 6:30.
6:30.
I think the regional is 6.
6, yeah, I was gonna say, I didn't.
And the budget meeting is 6?
Yes.
So on the 19th is a regular school board meeting?
It is. We had left it as either a committee or a board meeting, and there are some things that Tina feels that we'll need to deal with as a board. I think if there are committee issues and things that we really feel we need to have a committee meeting, then we can do a short one before or after if there's a committee that really feels they need to.
Yeah, that's one of the things Mary and I were talking about, is there's probably a decent chance there may be some resignations we need to deal with. There may, probably will be some negotiations information that we need to deal with. So it'd be really helpful for us to have it blocked out as a official board meeting, but it may be relatively short, and I'm thinking we may need to have a facilities meeting or a policy meeting. So if we may be able to, or may need to combine and have a few shortened committee meetings on top of a short board meeting. That leaves us good publication of the board meeting if it's needed, and I assume so.
So what is the feel? Do we want to go beyond 9 o'clock for our executive session?
So Mariella has.
Well, we really don't have too much. I mean, we could for 2 minutes and really quickly update you, but we don't have too much. So, if people might have some questions, then that would be fine. We can do that. But it would be very brief.
And knowing that we have a board meeting in May now,
Yeah.
we probably, I think I'm with Mariella, that we're
Yeah.
probably okay to wait.
Yeah, we can wait. We don't really have anything.
So if we're going to wait on that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Where's Stephen? We need him.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have anybody second it? That's Tina and Annette. Thank you.